I wanted to make sure that there was no bad blood because I do believe in having a collaborative culture. But I realized over the course of the project that because the client was not willing to be reasonable, my team was really run ragged. We couldn't take on more projects. And then by the end of the project, they got what they needed. They did not pay us more. And we were done. And I was so relieved. And I realized that I should have dropped that client months before.
What is the hardest thing you have faced in your life? How about if you die tomorrow? Have you ever experienced near-death experience? What would you do? You have to choose between living and dying. I have Kana LiVolsi here, and we share the same philosophy of storytelling and the impact of storytelling on other people's lives. Kana, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I want to tell the audience and the viewers and listeners about you, but it's going to take me 45 minutes to just tell them about your accomplishment with with your company, creative agency that you have, and with clients that you have served, and your experience being like a South by Southwest, mentor, speaker, coach. We're going to talk about all of that, folks, because I only have an hour, and if I want to give her 45 minutes for an accomplishment of her, then we're going to run out of time. But thank you for being here, Kana. I really appreciate it. Tell me, how did you get interested in a story and storytelling? Because everything I read about you, it goes back to that story.
Well, it's hard to pinpoint a single moment, but I think I've always been a person who's interested in story. Growing up, we moved a lot. I was in 10 schools by 9th grade. And so my friends were often television and film. Because if you move that much, it's hard to really connect with people. And so I would read books, I would watch TV, I would watch movies. And that was kind of how I made the world feel okay when it was hard. And so I got really into the stories of a lot of times underdogs, seeing how, because everybody loves a good underdog story,
oh, yeah.
Right?
I love it.
You want to see people come from a place of despair and rise to some sort of triumph and being a part of a community when they felt like an outsider. And I think when you grow up feeling like an outsider, you are drawn to storytelling because you like to watch and see how things evolve.
We talk off camera a little bit, but I think that our stories is kind of define us as an individual or as a business. Mm-hmm. And, you have a creative agency, I have an agency, and you're a change agency, which is, we're going to talk about that. That's change is not easy. And I don't really know how you tell the people that you got to change, you got to divert, you got to pivot. That's a very interesting conversation. But stories is a foundation of everything. I think if a company doesn't have a story, how are you going to build that assets or the creative things behind it? Because all the creative works, as you are a creative filmmaker and being a film school, it comes from a story. That is story that who are you? Yep. What are you trying to do? Where you want to go? And have you ever had an experience that, like as a change creative agency, to tell the clients the truth of hey, your story doesn't match with what you're trying to achieve? There are two possibilities. You tell me the wrong story, or you're trying to be somebody that you are not.
I mean, I will be honest, that is pretty much what I do.
Oh my God, God bless your heart.
Well, because I think, so when you have spinach in your teeth, you want somebody to tell you, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
I appreciate that.
Right? I think everyone appreciates the truth. It's hard to hear, and you have to preface it in the right way because people need to know. If you tell me I have spinach in my teeth and you say it in front of everybody and you say it in a way that's hurtful, like you have spinach in your teeth, and like look at everybody and make everybody think that we should be laughing, then that's the wrong way to do it. But if you say, hey, can we talk for a second? I wanted to let you know you have spinach in your teeth. There's a bathroom right there if you need to like go get it out. And just do it in a way that's considerate and like offers a solution. You're going to be grateful.
Absolutely.
And the other way, you're going to be defensive. And it's the same way when a brand doesn't match what it says its mission is. It's the same way when an executive tells me that they want to be presenting a certain way, they want to be leading a team a certain way, but they're not showing up in a way that gets that response. I spend a lot of time talking with leadership and talking with teams as to how they can be who they want to be. I don't tell them who they should be. I tell them who they want. I tell them how to do what they want.
Yeah, and I don't know why they do that. Maybe you know that answer, but why we have to pretend to be somebody or an organization that we're not? What is the benefit? Is it really financial, or is it just a, perception of others, because we want to be perceived as a great person or a great company?
So I think our biggest problem is that we have this competitive culture, and something you and I were talking about earlier, right? We teach people from a young age that it's about dominance. Like that's the problem we have.
Go get it.
Exactly. Pretty much at every level of society. The big problem is that we talk about dominance rather than talking about how to work together. And I think it was Tony Braxton that said that being good is the more interesting thing to do. It's the same thing with collaboration versus dominance. You can work with people and collaborate, and it's much harder, and it's more about puzzling and solving and bringing things together. And that's much harder than dominance. Dominance is easy, but we're taught that we should be competitive with one another. And so people try and put on airs, and they try to be this certain person, and they don't realize that they're moving away from the person they want to become.
And that would affect not internally, but externally as well, because we talk about the culture and the company, that it will really internally affect the creative people and, the executive, the creative, the staff, the people you work with. If you want to transfer that kind of philosophy through the organization, it's going to be a ripple effect, and it's going to change. That's what a lot of people, they leave, especially a lot of creative people, they leave organization because they're not up to their potential, because the organization says, no, we have to be this way. I said, no, the way you're going is wrong. I have seen that people left their job just because of that point of view.
Absolutely. Well, that's the funny thing, is that while we switched to calling ourselves a change agency for many reasons we can get into later, but part of the reason is that when people think of a creative agency, they don't think about a team doing internal comms. And most of our projects start with internal communications. We look at how a leader is talking to the team. We look at how the team is talking to the leaders. We look at how everyone's talking amongst themselves. And we look at how customers and investors and the board are all having these conversations. And we're seeing where patterns are emerging, or where ideals are falling off. And so we start to build story from the inside out, because when people on the inside feel that story and they feel that passion, they're going to stay with your company, and they are going to be the best advocates you can have. Whether it's your HR person, whether it's your customer service, whether it's your salesperson, whether it's your developers, everyone on the inside, if they feel the story and they feel aligned with the mission, they will be the best possible team for the job. But if they feel like the leader is trying to dominate, they feel like their teammates are constantly competing with each other, if they feel like the story doesn't align with what the company says they do, then they quiet quit. And workforce engagement is, I think, costing the global economy, $8.9 billion a year. Wow. I should check those facts, and I can send them to you later. But I was doing a lot of research specifically around this last week. But workforce engagement is a significant problem right now. It's the lowest it's been in 11 years.
And, change is not easy either. No? Like, you're a creative agency and you're a change agency, and some people, they are not open to change. And if you work with the clients, because we talk about that, you have that experience that you actually drop some clients. I did it too, that they weren't aligned with what we are actually thinking of what it's going to be,
Absolutely.
where the value is, where you're going, what are you saying? Is it going to match with what we're trying to create? Because the creative team, as you said, is a teamwork.
Absolutely.
And if they're not aligned, that's not an easy job.
It's not. Well, we're all part of this beautiful fabric of life, right? We're all weaving together and trying to work together. And if we fall out of alignment with each other, then you start to get these knots and you start to get this messy picture. And the fabric doesn't ever get where you need it to be.
There's no harmony.
No, there's no harmony.
When was the first time you dropped a client and how did you do that? Because I went to that scenario, we talk about it. It's not the easy thing. And this is good for a lot of CEOs or companies to listen to it, because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, money is good. You get that money, but deep inside, are you happy for what you have created, what you have delivered to your client? It's not easy. For the first time I dropped a client, it was very hard, I told you, but I had to do it because I was thinking, if we want to edit this, how are we going to live with ourselves? Because that's not what he actually does. What is your experience on that? How did you handle that the first time? I know it's not easy.
It's not. I feel like I more distinctly remember the first time I didn't drop a client, because I think in the beginning I was so convinced that if somebody wants something, if they want to move in a certain direction, that they can be reasoned with. You can talk through and you can figure out a solution to the problem. And it's not always the case. Like, we had a client years ago, the agency's been around almost 10 years now, that I really loved the person. I thought they were fantastic. They reached out to me for branding, and they were a friend of a friend. Because when you first start, friend of a friend is where you get your references, right?
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to make it work, because I wanted to make it work for the friendship that I had with our mutual. And I wanted to make sure that there was no bad blood, because I do believe in having a collaborative culture.
I love that.
But I realized over the course of the project that because the client was not willing to be reasonable, they were trying to play the game of dominance and try and gaslight, I hate to use the term, but gaslight us into doing more for less. My team was really run ragged. We couldn't take on more projects at the time because we were doing so much to make up for this client, because we thought we were doing something wrong, when in reality they were just trying to get more work.
You and using me, yeah.
Exactly. So I wish I had dropped them sooner. And then by the end of the project, they got what they needed. They did not pay us more. And we were done. And I was so relieved. And I realized that I should have dropped that client months before, because it hurt my team. It hurt myself. It hurt our dynamics. And that's something you can't get back.
No, absolutely not. And I think I experienced that as well. But I think when we raise our standards, everything starts changing. Like, we can't be everything to everybody. I learned that in the hard way. You get to the point that we've been, agency almost for 14, but is you can't please everybody.
No.
And you can't change everybody. And, and sometimes you got to stand for who you are and what you believe. And most importantly, you have to stand behind your team and say, this creative person does a fantastic job. I can't really go out there and sell them for less. It's going to hurt them, And because what is a scarcity mind? I don't know, when we start, we have that scarcity mindset and say, oh, we're going to get that. Oh no, the client is good. They're going to understand it. But at the end of the day, not every client is your client.
Absolutely.
And there's no hard feeling. It is what it is. We can't be, everything to everybody, as I said. But
Absolutely.
When you change that and you shift that, for me, everything starts changing. And you have to first put your people first and say, how that's going to affect my people.
I completely agree. And sometimes you bet on the wrong people too.
Yep.
But you never know.
You never know.
It's hard and you learn it over time. But I think it's a matter of trying to do right by the people around you, both from the client side and internally. And you can't lose focus on that, right? Like if you go, there are a lot of people I think that go at business with the mindset of what's in it for me, which I think there needs to be a little bit of, right? Like you need to say, okay, this makes sense for me to do. But you also want to make sure that your team is getting something from it, getting paid well, that your client is getting the product that they deserve, that you say that you're going to deliver on, and that you're creating a win-win scenario.
For me, my people come first because, in my old days, I served in the military, and I'm always about the team because, I was a squad leader and managing my team, and they always come first. And I believe people can make you or break you. And if your people, your creative team, anybody in your organization are happy, the client will be happy. It's a win-win situation for everybody. And then you understand this in more depth when you get to the point that if I lose it all, what's going to happen? Or as we talk off camera about the near-death experience that you said, I've been not like that, but I've been in the situation that for me, life and death was, okay, I might die next 30 seconds, get hit by a bullet. I got used to that mentality. Now I says, okay, I'm going to do my best, make sure my people are happy, taking care of my people. What is the worst case scenario? I'm going to keep going because I have seen it that you can lose everything in a second. How was that experience for you?
The near-death experience?
Yes, I really want to know about that because that would affect not only your life, I think your perspective on life and the business. It would change your perspective.
Absolutely. So in order to do this, I have to do a little bit of storytelling. We'll see how
absolutely.
I do.
My audience and I love stories. Everyone has a story. That's why we are here chatting.
Good. That's great. So I guess the easiest place to start the story is when I was 32, I got diagnosed with early stage cervical cancer. And I was about 3 months out from my wedding to my husband, who I had been with for 8 years. And I kept putting off getting married because there are so many issues with the institution of marriage versus the relationship of marriage. And so we had to push back our wedding so that I could have surgery. And when they were in there, they found 4 fibroids.
Yep.
There were 4 that were the size of golf balls in the lining of my uterus. And there was one the size of a softball. And so the doctor had to pull my husband and my parents into the room during the surgery and say that they found these fibroids they didn't know existed. And she could either perform the surgery to get them out at the same time as the cervical cancer removal, but there was a chance I could bleed out, or I'd have to have surgery again in 5 months. And they obviously said, let's not risk it. Let's wait and have a second surgery. So that's what we did. And in the 5 months later, I had the second surgery. And during that time, I was told that it was very unlikely that I would be able to have children. And this was said to my husband and I before we got married and throughout this time. And it was something we came to terms with. And I think it was 3 years later, we were in the middle of the pandemic. It was 2021. 2020, in the summer of 2020, sorry. The doctor told me that I had been clear of cancer. I was good to go at that point, and that there was a small window where we could have a kid. And so we decided to go for it, and we got pregnant almost instantly. It was an extremely weird, excruciating experience because being pregnant during lockdown was wild. And it was when they weren't sure if pregnant women could have the vaccine. And so I went through this insane pregnancy where I was sick almost every day for 9 months. And it was not morning, it was middle of the day, evening, constantly. And I kept telling my doctor, something feels like it's ripping. Something is wrong. And they said it was normal, that they thought I was exaggerating. And at, again, 9 months pregnant, I got my second vaccine because they told me that it should be safe and that it would be better because if the baby ended up getting COVID in the hospital, then it would have been for naught. So I was sitting on our couch, feeling like something was wrong. My entire body, I'm 5'3", so this was a large percentage of my body. I had been put on bed rest for a month because baby had been trying to come out, as I told the doctor. And my lips had turned blue. My fever was 93.7, which is incredibly low. And I could not turn without screaming in pain. And the doctor told us that it was just a reaction to the COVID shot, that everything would be fine. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to. I don't want to be a pain. I don't want to call and have an ambulance come if nothing is wrong. And finally, my husband was like, no, like,
you got to do it.
We have to do this. Like, I'm calling the ambulance. And as soon as the ambulance got there, they lifted me onto a gurney and I flatlined.
Really?
My uterus burst and I was dead for 15 minutes. And they ended up doing CPR on me for 15 minutes, which is
15 minutes, that's a long time.
It's not common.
It is not. This is the first time I heard.
It's very rare. There is less than a 1% chance of survival. And they did it because I was pregnant. And so I woke up and found out I was in a coma. Like, my eyes were closed. I could hear everything. I could see everything slightly through the bottom of my lids, I guess. But I heard the conversations for almost 3 days of the doctors telling my family and my husband to unplug me because they thought that I would either be mentally a vegetable or incredibly physically impaired, or both, that there wasn't really much of a chance I'd be normal. And they fought, and I could not be more grateful for my in-laws and my parents and my husband and all of our family, who were all in the hospital during COVID, mind you. And I woke up and I asked for a pen and I wrote hysterectomy. And the nurse said yes. And I said, baby gone. And she said, I'm going to go get your husband. And he came back and told me that we had lost our baby and I could not have children again. And I had never been a woman who cared that much about having kids. Like, I always thought that there was a lot of restrictions and I didn't know if I would be a good mom. But I really cared. It's weird. It's an experience that I think most people don't get, where you have something inside you. Like, it's strange. You feel like an alien, that you can't, like, there's something that's always going to be following you that you can't get away from. It's kicking and I don't know, you just form this weird, amazing bond. And when I found out that he was gone at 9 months, and I told them to take him out before, I was devastated. But I was glad to be back. And I was glad to be there, to be with my husband and my family. And working through learning how to walk again, learning how to go to the bathroom again, learning how to breathe again. I had surgery on my brain, on my kidneys, intestines, heart. I don't even know how many things, but there were, I think, 11 different doctors in the OR. And I could not be more grateful for those people and for the hospital staff. But it just gave me this sense of purpose and community. I'm feeling like if I was going to be back and my son didn't get to live and I did, then I wanted to make sure that I was deserving of my time.
That's a difficult situation to be in. I can never imagine, I can't really have words for it, because you got to be in that situation.
That's the crazy thing is, throughout my pregnancy, when I was telling the doctors that I wasn't feeling okay and something felt wrong, or in the early stages, they said, well, like, it's legal. You don't have to keep the baby, because at the time in Texas, it was legal to have an abortion.
Exactly, that was like not right now.
And I said, and when they asked me, it was in that moment I knew that I wanted to be a mother. Because if you don't have the choice, you don't get to say, I want this. Like, I am deciding to do this. This isn't something that's being forced upon me. This isn't an alien that's being forced upon me. I want this. I want to raise this baby. And so I did. But the problem was that when my uterus burst, our son drowned in my blood and did not make it. So it wasn't even a choice. And the crazy thing was, during pregnancy, I had these dreams that he would make it and I wouldn't. Like, I was just convinced. It was weird.
You had a dream?
I had a lot of dreams that were that he would make it and I didn't. And I was accepting that, because I don't know. I feel like that's the story we're always told. And I don't know if I had to make that choice, if I would be able to choose to live instead of my son. Like, I don't think that's something anybody, I don't know. I just don't know what decision would be right or what wouldn't. And I'm glad I didn't have to make that choice. But I'm sad that he's not here. And I feel like if he isn't, then I am doing my darndest to honor him and honor the doctors and my family, and honestly, my team who supported me, because I was out for 2 weeks in the hospital, to deserve the extra time that I had.
I have lost people under my command before, but this is too close to home, because that relationship that you bond during those 9 months, and then you were right. I can never imagine that how it would feel that something is attached to you, and then it's very difficult. And did that change your perspective toward life?
Absolutely.
In which way?
It gave me so much more respect for a lot of people.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I think the fact that there are so many people on the planet gave me so much more respect for my mother, right? For having my sister and myself. That all of these women go through this complete breaking of body and soul for 9 months, because they act like it's this thing that's just beautiful. And in some ways it is the most incredible, magical, wild, like mind-blowing thing. But in other ways it is strange. Like, your body and your mind are changing, and you can't, it's out of your control, because you're along for the ride. And that so many people do it, and the husbands and the families around them also adapt. There's this thing that's outside of work, right? Yeah. Whereas before, I think I had maybe become a little bit of a workaholic. Like I didn't tell, I don't know if this is workaholism, but I didn't hide, I just didn't disclose my pregnancy over Zoom to most clients because I knew that in that time during the pandemic, it could put my team out of work.
With all that feeling, the nauseousness and all that stuff, you still went through it and worked and served the clients and support your team. Why?
Because I cared about them and I cared about the clients. Like I'm not going to phone it in. And there are so many negative stigmas to pregnancy and to how women are different before and after. And I think the stigmas are wrong. You become so much more awake after pregnancy. And that's the interesting thing. You become more attuned to other people's feelings. You become more attuned to the people around you. There are interesting studies that have been done that shows how your brain changes, where you're just better at avoiding risk. Because if you think about having a kid running around, let's say one was running around the studio, they could easily knock over a light or knock over a camera, or they could accidentally hurt themselves by bonking into a wall. And mothers have to have their mind on that at all times while also functioning.
Is that how you operate your agency now?
In a lot of ways. I wouldn't give myself that much credit, but I think I am just so much more attuned that everybody is a person. We're not just people that work together. And I always had an idea of it, but I feel like afterwards it really put me in touch with my humanity and the humanity of people I'm talking to. That everybody's story is important. That everybody's frustration and traits that may come off as difficult are actually a reflection of their pain. And if we address the pain, then we can probably work through the problem to get them where they want to go.
You know, I believe that we all go to the harsh reality of life. Like you went through it. I went through it. A lot of people are listening or watching, they went through it. But what we can do with it, I think it's a different story. Then you come out of it and you said, okay, I'm here. Then what is the purpose of my existence? Now what? Why I am alive? Why I'm not gone? That happened to me. Like I lost 4 of my teammates and I survived the war. And I always say, why me? Why me that I lost my friend in front of me and why I didn't die? And then you go back and it says, then what God wants to tell me? Or why I do exist? What should I do? How should I serve my team, my clients, my family, my husband, my wife, my kids? It changed your perspective totally. And you're not afraid as you used to be. I don't know if you're afraid of death. I don't think so. You are right now. Because you experienced it. You said in the blink of the eye, you were gone. And then you came back. You kind of experienced it, that between, being gone and being existed.
I remember during the coma just never thinking that I wouldn't make it, never believing what the doctor said, just this almost crazy, I don't know. You find a strength where you say, these people need me. I'm going to push through no matter what. It doesn't matter. I see them hurting. I'm here. I am not going to give up because I know that they need me here. And I think that's a way that you can carry over into every part of your life, is knowing that where in some cases, like we talked about before, it's important when to say, when to walk away. I think there are many more cases where it's important to have the hard conversations and where it's important to take the actions you can to move in the direction you believe is.
Do you think this experience made you stronger?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you can say no?
Much easier to say no.
Because saying no is very difficult sometimes. I had to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say yes and it will come back and bite you. And you want to do the good things. You want to serve. You want to help. But you are in the level or capacity that it says, I couldn't do it. Why did I say yes? And then when you say no, I felt that I am disappointing that person, which is not. And I had to work on that. Like by saying no, it doesn't mean you don't love him, you don't like him, or you don't want to work with him. It's just, it's a no.
Right. Well, I think oddly enough, getting involved in understanding finance and in the finance world helped me be better at creating no's. I think before I struggled with saying no when it came to how much work I would, how much work I would need to put in, and I would cut my own margins so that I could make sure my team was taken care of. But then throughout that process, I realized I wasn't taking care of myself as well as I could have. Like I should have given myself some time during the pregnancy to kind of slow down a bit. And you realize that your health also impacts the health of people around you, right? If you aren't taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of your team, you can't take care of your clients, and everybody feels it.
Amen.
And when you break it down into numbers, and you can actually break your health down into numbers, which is interesting, your clients understand it a little bit better, because it's harder to just say, I don't want to do it because it's going to hurt my mental health, it's going to hurt my physical health, and I'm not going to be able to show up for my team. Most people don't accept that.
Why is that?
I think it's because everyone gets wound up in these narratives that in order to be worthy, we need to tie worth to money. And I believe that we should be doing valuations differently. I
hate it when sometimes people say, I want to know how much you're worth.
I do too. I think, well, I just
think funny.
It's such a silly thing, because if somebody is, okay, so let's take I'm trying not to go too far in any direction, but like let's say, let's talk about how there are certain cases that are being brought up against oil companies in New York. These companies and the owners of these companies are worth so much money, and yet they are depleting and destroying the natural resources of the planet, and the toxins that are going into the air and to the soil and to the water are hurting the people. Now, how can you measure the valuation of a company if they are negatively impacting people and the environment, but they have a high profit margin?
I think it all goes back to how much money they're making, or what is the actual number on the board,
right?
Rather than how many people are affected by those, decisions.
I think it's interesting, all these cases that are coming up where, like in New York, they're talking about charging those oil companies for climate-related damage.
Yeah, climate damage.
And there's so many different things that I think that can spread to throughout companies right now. It's interesting because I think people don't understand how much of a case is starting to build for treating people and the planet well, because not doing so is actually a liability. With all of the data and research that's now available, you can track how the companies are impacting people on the planet in a way you never could before. And it's a potential lawsuit waiting to happen.
Oh yeah. It's right? A lot of changes are happening right now, and it will, if eventually, it will ripple effect, and
Absolutely.
hits a lot of companies too in different levels.
Absolutely. And so if that happens, then your monetary valuation will actually go down significantly.
Yep.
Right, and your funnel for business goes down because people don't want to be associated with a company that has that negative impact. And so doing the right thing, I think, is becoming more widely aware that is profitable.
This goes back to the narrative of the company.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
What you stand for and what you're going to reflect and you're going to project to the outside world based on what you do, rather than what you want people to know.
Exactly.
That's what goes back to being a creative and doing those changes that, folks, we have no other, way to just say it, but sometimes it's not right.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's not right, and you got to do the right thing. That's what, you don't work with some clients. I don't work with some clients. We are all about the people. And as you just said, we have to be selfish in a good way, because if you don't taking care of yourself, how are you going to taking care of your team, your husband, your loved ones?
Exactly.
We all been that route that we said, oh yeah, you put yourself last. But I think it's time for change.
I completely agree.
You got to come first, because if Kana is not good, how are you gonna make things happen?
Well, it's you don't necessarily have to put yourself first, but I think that you also have to be considered in the matrix of people you're considering.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't say, "Oh, I care so much for my husband and my team and my friends that I would die for them." It's like, wait. What about if we all work together to come up with a better solution so no one has to die?
No one has to
right?
die. I totally agree. That's a totally different perspective. And I like that. As we go back to, most of the agencies, most of the companies, they think that, is a competition, or, you have to push somebody else down to destroy somebody's building to build your tallest building, which is, it's not right. I think the collaboration is the key, especially going forward, because just imagine how much powerful we can be if we work together.
And think about all the people that have been ignored over time just because they didn't fit in the right group of people that they thought were like women and minorities. I'm just going to say it. Like women and minorities were not considered for most of human history, right? Imagine how many more Leonardo da Vinci's were hiding in the weeds. They just had the wrong skin color or the wrong genitalia. I mean, I think we've been cutting off our potential as humans by trying to categorize people for things they cannot change or that they're born with, rather than the merit of the person and the integrity of the person.
You said something very nice and interesting. You said everyone has a story, and then you have to really listen to it.
I don't think that anyone is bad. I don't think anyone is evil.
I don't think so either.
I think we just have to start learning how to talk to each other again, because
we're all different.
Absolutely.
But in one way or another, we kind of complement each other.
I agree. And I think that this competition and this dominance culture is keeping people from connecting, and it's keeping people unhappy, right? Like I can't imagine that someone who is working so hard to take rights or to take work or to take money from other people is all that happy. Like if I was a billionaire, I would not be spending my money trying to take rights and things from other people. I would be spending that money to see what we could create, what cool things we could make to make everybody's life better.
Do you think money brings happiness?
I think if you use it well and you use it, and there's like a threshold, right? I think a certain amount of money brings comfort and happiness because of our competitive culture.
I love that. I think the money brings comfort, and happiness is part of it. But you know what? If you don't know how to use it or what you're going to do with it, it will be a very, very bad thing.
And I think sometimes people, I think we've all seen it where, like the Super Bowl this weekend, people spent money so poorly. Some spent it well, but generally. You
saw the ads?
Yep. Did you see the ads?
Oh, yeah, some were good, but some, I don't know. And you know how much it costs.
Oh, yeah. And all of that money is just because they're trying to round out their budgets and they're trying to show their worth. But in the reality, you're wasting a lot of money for the majority of those ads. Because how many products would you typically need to sell in order for that ad to make money back?
Going back to that, do you think the landscape of digital transformation, digital marketing is changing? Very much so. It has been. Like with the rise of AI?
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of... So if you think of information as a diet, there is a lot of junk food in the diet of AI, right? And a lot of the junk food is written by a small group of people, a small percentage of the population, if we look back all through history. And so we really need curators of content. And that's kind of where I think digital marketing is moving and creativity is moving, is more into curators and people who are creating patterns rather than relying strictly on AI. It's like having a mid-level or entry-level employee that can get a lot done really quickly. But I think that's also hurting the early entry-level employees because they're not getting that process in place in their head to understand why something works the way it does.
Yeah, you get something, you lose something. Yeah, it's a great tool. As you said, you can use it for email, but for other levels. But recently I had a very nice conversation with a venture capitalist, and he said they're stop investing with the AI companies because they get up in the morning, something has changed. And he says it becomes very risky for them to invest in really AI startups because constantly changing. And they don't know what is going to be next. Is it going to make it or not? Because a lot of the engine is the same, but the different variation of it. And so people are scared to invest.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but also a lot of AI companies aren't actually like building AI, right? They're using existing AI technologies and then mixing it up a little bit.
I think the creative agencies like you or change agencies, are not going to go away. The AI is a tool, but it all goes back to people.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, it's the people against people, people versus people. And that's the big part of creating something.
When there needs to be that human element, so a few years back, they launched several completely virtual AI influencers in China. And did you read about this?
No, I heard it. I never read it.
Yeah. So basically, when they first launched, the influencers were incredibly popular because of the nuance. But over time, the interest in these AI accounts just tanked because even though there were so many people that were behind making it, it was still not a person and the authenticity was missing. The brands wanted those accounts because there was a liability with real influencers because if they did something wrong, they could get canceled. It could reflect poorly on the brand. And there's always a little bit of a risk. But it's kind of like with life. It's only interesting because we know it ends, because we know something can go wrong. And I think that's what holds human interest. And that's why creativity needs a human touch, is because we watch it to see where it'll go. We don't want something that's been created without humans involved.
And I think we created a weapon that I really think that they're going to, work against us.
I agree. I think it depends on who uses it and how it's used. Because at the end of the day, with any tool, somebody's holding it, right?
For example, I hand you a knife and you can cut the watermelon with it or, skin a orange, or you can simply kill it.
Yeah.
That's how you use the knife.
Exactly.
It's very simple, but we as a human have a tendency to make everything complex, but it's very simple.
It is.
Just do the right thing. You and I during this podcast, we're just talking about one thing, doing the right thing, loving your people, create that community, work with the people you like to do. It's just so simple.
And I think at the end of the day, it's more profitable for companies. And it's going to be less profitable not to in the future. Yeah. And pretty soon in the future.
Do you have any advice for startups company that they're trying to go out there? They want to be entrepreneur. They want to have the whole thing.
I mean, there's lots of things. I guess one is, why do you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
I think it always comes down to the success of a company. I feel like I've been able to track over the years with different clients, always comes down to why the entrepreneur wants to do it. If it's something that comes from deep inside them, or if it's something that they just want to capture because it seems popular, because they see there's a white space and there might be money there. But I think that you can also see it as a white space and have a deeper connection to that. Say, well, I want to do this because I see this solving a problem that I feel deeply connected to. And I think that trait is so apparent to your teams. It's so apparent to the investors. It's so apparent to your clients. At the end of the day, is why does this company exist? And it can't just be to make money. it's not exciting anymore. And I think that it's so easy in dupe culture to recreate existing products that it's not worthwhile.
How you feel when you get up in the morning? You still love what you do?
I do. I think I also have diversified, obviously, because I started a foundation with
Really?
a couple of people, bringing VR into hospitals.
Really?
Yeah. So
what is that foundation about?
So it's healing entertainment, and my friend who is the former head of innovation for Paramount Studios, and then my other friend who has built out incredible AI and VR journeys for Disney and Red Bull and all of these other companies. We got together and had different health journeys that we talked about, and wanted to do something to help other people. And so it's a new foundation. So
what is the name?
Healing Entertainment.
Healing Entertainment.
Yeah. So we're talking to a couple of hospitals about bringing it in for patients who are end of life, so that you can let's say your loved one is dealing with a terminal illness. They're not just staring at a gray hospital wall, that they're getting to experience. They wanted to go back to Rome, if they wanted to go to Disney World.
I got it, yeah. Create that past, that good memories,
exactly,
and bring it to life, that while they're laying down on the bed, they can have that feeling that, okay, I'm not still dead, I'm still here, I can see it.
Absolutely. And there's there's applications across the healthcare system where experience shapes your health. Like if you feel like if you're on a journey in a VR virtual reality rather than sitting in a hospital, where you're trying to level up, trying to get to the next thing. Like for me, it was, again, trying to walk, trying to breathe, trying to go to the bathroom, having things that you're working towards, but in an environment that you enjoy, your health can improve.
Like for the patients never been in Italy, they say, I never been in Italy. I said, oh, you want to go to Italy? We're going to take you there. What would you like to go? What cities are you going to? That's so cool. Like, because I used VR before, and you can actually go in there, actually you can feel you are there. And especially when it's got a sound, or like, for example, in Rome, like the birds are flying around, you can feel that the sound of the wings and there, and it's so fun. It's so fun.
Absolutely. And it actually shapes your health. Like it changes your blood pressure. It changes your anxiety levels. People actually heal faster when they're in a room with a window, when there are plants in a hospital room, when there's sound involved, when there's visuals involved. Like there are so many things about your experience that can completely, again, shift your reality.
And this is going to be is a nonprofit, or is just?
It's a foundation.
And you guys are raising money?
We are, yes.
As everything is up, like people can go check it out, the site and everything?
We have a deck that we are giving to.
Okay, you're a deck.
Yeah. And we're in talks with a couple of big hospitals.
That's amazing. Yeah. How can we help you?
I mean, if anybody
guys, listen up.
If anybody's interested, please hit us up. And then I'm working as a chief marketing officer as one of my clients for a private equity firm focused on regenerative real estate and infrastructure.
You do a lot of stuff with, Kana, with all this stuff happened to you, you still keep going. You're never giving up. Why you do that? Why you just?
I think
that experience made you tough, or?
I was always tough. I think I think it's a matter of, I always like to work with people who share a trait of getting knocked down and getting back up.
That's right.
Because there's a lot of people who struggle.
Comeback stories.
Right? And it's boring to think there's nowhere else to go. Like, why not embrace the life we're given, the extra chance we're given? I could die tomorrow. But I would rather die tomorrow feeling like I tried all the things I cared about and helped more people.
That's so, so rewarding. Do you have any regrets?
Everybody has regrets. I think what I try to think about is that I wouldn't be the person I am today and a lot of doors wouldn't have opened if I had changed anything in my past. Like, we all have mistakes, but I think mistakes are just experimenting.
And why some people, they're holding on their past or their bad memories? Why they're holding on? Why are they going to get out of it?
We all do it. I think it's that insecurity that comes from a competitive culture. It's just being able to understand that that's not the better way. That's not the way that's going to make you happy. And once you realize that.
It's a Louis Vuitton purse stories. I want to have a Louis Vuitton.
Exactly. And I mean, if somebody wants a Louis Vuitton, then get a Louis Vuitton. Like, if you can afford it, if you can make it happen, do it. But just question, once you get everything you want, will you be happy? Will you be fulfilled? And if not, maybe it's not the thing worth pursuing.
Are you a vulnerable person?
A vulnerable?
Yeah.
Nah, not at all. No. I feel like vulnerability allows other people to be vulnerable. Why?
Well, you're not afraid of judgment?
No, not really.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because, I told you, off camera that a lot of people, they don't want to be vulnerable or, they're afraid of that judgment thing.
I think the more that we are vulnerable and we are allowing other people to not be afraid of judgment.
Do you have any message for the entrepreneurs out there? Because you and I, we talk about entrepreneurship. And do you have any message, advice for the people out there that go get it?
You are worthwhile, I think, is something that everyone needs to understand. And once we understand that, I think we'll be in a lot better place. But also recognizing that when you're running up against walls, you're not making them up.
You just got to go through it.
You got to go through it, and you got to find your people. And you got to talk to everyone and understand everyone you meet as a person and as a human, rather than thinking of them as a wall.
How involved are you going to be in the South by Southwest this year?
I'm mentoring this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, so this will be
great.
fun. Yeah, and I feel like I always have clients come in town. I'm actually nervous about my schedule. I keep getting emails about different events and different things, and I'm excited, but it's always a long journey.
South by Southwest is a busy month for us in Austin, Texas, and it's good.
It is. What are y'all doing this year, South by?
We have a couple of events that we promise we're going to go actually get involved and do it, but I am actually personally involved of the foundation. They call it Sentinel Foundation. It's against human trafficking.
Amazing.
And, I help them out. We do fundraising and, help with other founders of nonprofit, like at the Magdalene House, Tony, and, Rhythm with David Reed, is that we all, help one another and
Amazing.
to, fight against human trafficking, and then, awareness of it. What is human trafficking? What does a trafficker look like, and what you have to do to prevent it? Very involved on that and doing a lot of fundraising events. It's fun. It's something that I always want to do it, to fight this crime, and it's good. So far so good. We have so much stuff is coming up in 2025.
That's amazing.
I really appreciate it, Kana, being here, and I really enjoy my conversation for you. I learn a lot. And I always tell everybody, Talk2Rami show is a learning platform for me. And I get free coaching from you or other people come to the show, and I learn a lot. I am more educated than ever since I started this show, because come on, you give me your valuable time, and I'm here learning, and I transfer that through the media to other people they can learn. And we all appreciate that, what you have done and what you just did today based on your story, because we're all going to learn from it. We're all going to learn from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having this platform and having me here.